Have you ever been there? You write a few lines of Python, it looks totally fine, everything seems logical, and then, boom, the whole thing crashes. Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most common, most frustrating errors in Python, and I'll show you the surprisingly simple fix. All right, so take a look at this. It's a classic. We make a variable, age, and we set it to the number 15. Then we just try to print a sentence using it. Seems harmless enough, right? I mean, it looks like it should work perfectly. But here's the kicker. This code will fail every single time. And that brings us to the big question. Why? What is actually going on under the hood that causes this simple-looking code to just fall apart? Okay, to really get to the bottom of this, we first need to understand how Python actually sees the data we give it. It all comes down to the basic building blocks. For what we're doing today, that means numbers and text. You know, Python is kind of particular about its numbers. It sorts them into two main buckets. On one side, you've got your integers. These are just nice, clean, whole numbers. No fractions, no decimals. Then, on the other side, you have floats. And these are any numbers that do have a decimal point. That little dot makes a huge difference to the computer. So let's circle back to our original code. When we wrote age equals 15, Python looked at that number and immediately said, okay, no decimal point here, this is an integer. And it gets filed away in its memory as a whole number. And just to make it crystal clear, if you were dealing with something like a price, 99.5, Python sees that decimal and instantly classifies it as a float. It's a really simple distinction, but believe it or not, this is the entire reason our code is breaking. So we have these different types of data living in their own separate worlds. But what happens when we try to force them to interact? Well, that's when we get the conflict, the big problem at the heart of all this, the dreaded type error. If you were to run that original code, this is exactly what you'd see. This error message pops up, and your program just stops cold. Now, it looks a little intimidating, I get it, but it's actually giving us a huge clue. It's telling us you can only concatenate, which is just a fancy programmer word for join, a string to another string. But Python found an int, our integer, trying to crash the party. See, Python is super literal. When it sees a plus sign, it's either doing math with numbers or it's joining text together. It can't do both at the same time. Trying to join a piece of text with a number is like asking someone, hey, what's the word hello plus the number 15? The question itself just doesn't make any sense. But every good story needs a hero, and for this little programming puzzle, our hero is a simple, powerful function that's already built right into Python. So let's meet the solution to our type error nightmare, the string function. So what is this thing? Well, think of str like a universal translator for your data. Its one job, its only job, is to take something that isn't text, like our integer 15, or a float like 99.5, and just transform it into text. That way, it can be safely joined up with other text. And using it is unbelievably easy. You just take your number, whatever it is, and you wrap it inside the str function, just like you see here. And instantly, Python stops seeing it as a number it can do math with. Instead, it just sees it as a sequence of characters, a 9, another 9, a period, and a 5. That's all ready to be part of a sentence. Okay, that's the theory, but let's actually see this hero in action. We're going to apply the string function to a couple of examples and watch that type error completely disappear. And here it is, the fix in action. Look at that first row. Our original problem with the age, solved, just by wrapping that number in string function. Same thing for the price. The float 99.5 gets converted, and the sentence prints out perfectly. And with the apples, too. It works every time, whether you're dealing with an integer or a float. So all of this brings us to the final and most important takeaway. This is the one thing to remember from this entire explainer that's going to save you a ton of headaches later on. Let's call it the new golden rule for printing variables in Python. Here it is. It's that simple. Always convert numbers to strings when joining them with text. If you're using that plus sign to piece a sentence together, and one of those pieces is a number, just get into the habit of wrapping it with str. It's a tiny, tiny bit of extra typing that prevents a guaranteed program crash. And there you have it. A really common, really frustrating Python crash demystified and solved with one simple function. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other big, scary-looking errors are out there just waiting for a simple, elegant one-function solution? That's definitely a thought worth exploring. Thanks for joining me on this one.